Good afternoon, colleagues. We have several questions today, including those on migration policy. But I would like to start today with another issue, which is of particular importance of protection of our national interests and the sovereignty of Russia, and for ensuring international security in general, without exaggeration. I mean the situation in the sphere of strategic stability. Unfortunately, it continues to degrade, which is caused by the overall impact of a number of factors, which are negative in nature, provoking exacerbation of existing and the emergence of new strategic risks. As a result of the rather destructive steps taken by the Western countries, the foundation of constructive relations and practical interaction between the states with nuclear weapons was significantly undermined. The foundations for dialogue in the corresponding bilateral and multilateral formats were shattered. Step by step, the Soviet-American and Russian-American agreements on control of nuclear and strategic defensive arms were almost completely dismantled. The system, which worked both to stabilize the situation between the states and the owners of the two largest nuclear arsenals, and in general, to strengthen global security. I repeat, we have repeatedly been told about the reasons and possible consequences of such a situation. Numerous problems accumulated in the strategic sphere since the beginning of the 21st century are associated with the destructive actions of the West. Their destabilizing doctrinal concepts and military and technical programs aimed at undermining the global parity, at attempting to gain absolute overwhelming superiority. We have consistently and in detail, focusing on these issues, criticized this position. We have not only emphasized the extreme danger of further deterioration of the situation, but also repeatedly put forward specific ideas on its joint management. However, our warnings and initiatives have not received a clear response. I would like to emphasize, and no one should have any doubts about this, that Russia is able to respond to any existing and emerging threats, not in words, but by applying military and technical measures. An example of this is our decision to abandon a one-sided moratorium on the deployment of medium and short-range ground missiles. This was a forced step dictated by the need to adequately respond to the programs for the deployment of similar weapons of American and other Western production in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, which directly threatens Russia's security. Our plans to strengthen the country's defense capabilities are being developed taking into account the changing situation in the world. They are being implemented in full and in due time. We are confident in the reliability and effectiveness of our national forces' deterrence. But at the same time, we are not interested in further increasing tensions and tightening the arms race. Russia has always been and continues to be a priority when it comes to the policy and diplomatic methods of supporting the international community based on principles of equality, indivisibility, security, and mutual consideration of interests. Let me remind you that the last significant diplomatic achievement in the sphere of strategic stability was the conclusion of the Russian-American Strategic Offensive Weapons Treaty in 2010. However, due to the Biden administration's extremely hostile policy, which violated the basic provisions on which the treaty was based, its full-scale implementation was suspended in 2023. Nevertheless, both sides have stated their intention to voluntarily continue to comply with the central quantitative restrictions on the Strategic Offensive Weapons Treaty until the end of its life cycle. Thus, for almost 15 years now, this agreement has continued to play a significant and positive role in maintaining the balance of power and determination in the sphere of strategic offensive weapons. The term of the Treaty of the Soviet Union expires on February 5, 2026, which means the imminent disappearance of the last international agreement on direct restrictions on missile and nuclear potential. The complete rejection of the legacy of this agreement would be, in many ways, a wrong and short-sighted step, which would have a negative impact, in our opinion, on ensuring the goals of the treaty on the non-distribution of nuclear weapons. In order not to provoke a further race of strategic weapons and to ensure an acceptable level of predictability and restraint, we consider it justified to try to maintain the status quo, which has developed due to the Treaty of Stalingrad, at a rather turbulent stage. Therefore, Russia is ready to continue to comply with the central quantitative restrictions on the Treaty on the Non-Distribution of Nuclear Weapons in the future. Based on the analysis of the situation, we will make certain decisions on the subsequent maintenance of the specified voluntary self-restraint. We believe that this measure will become viable only if the United States acts in a similar way and does not take steps that undermine or violate the existing balance of potential and restraint. In this regard, I ask the relevant agencies to continue to closely monitor the relevant activities of the American side. First of all, this should be applied to the SNV arsenal. Special attention should also be paid to the plans to increase the strategic components of the U.S. anti-missile defense system, including the preparation for the placement of interception means in space. We will proceed from the fact that the practical implementation of such destabilizing measures will be able to reduce the efforts of our side to maintain the status quo in the SNV sphere. We will react accordingly. I believe that the implementation of the Russian initiative could be a significant contribution to creating an atmosphere of favorable subject to strategic dialogue with the United States. Naturally, when the conditions for its full-scale resumption are formed, and taking into account the entire complex of efforts to normalize bilateral relations, the elimination of fundamental contradictions in the security sphere.